The Media Center for Art Education and Technology, a service of the Monterey County Office of Education, along with the Herald Live, presents PrepNation. Now to your hosts, Dave Kellogg and John Devine.
Welcome to PrepNation. I'm Dave Kellogg alongside John Devine. Well, it's getting darker earlier. That means it must be basketball season as sports moves inside for much of the county. John, who are going to be some of the top boys teams this year?
Same ones that were in football.
Yeah.
Palma and Seaside for starters. I mean, I think these are arguably the two best teams in the county, and maybe the two best teams in the Central Coast section in terms of Division 4. I mean, these teams are going to meet twice in the regular season, and it would not surprise me if we see them meeting in the finals 3 months from now.
The CCS finals again?
In Division 4, yeah.
Wow, okay. Could it be something crazy like we could see them again in NorCal, meeting up in NorCal?
Yeah, well, if they're finished 1-2, yeah, they'd both qualify.
Right.
I mean, Seaside's extremely talented this year, very athletic. The addition of the Turner brothers certainly helps their program. They already had a couple of all-leaguers in Kyle Heave and Joseph Jabakowski, so they got 4 potential all-leaguers on that team. And then, of course, with Palma, you've got Noah Allen, who's on his way to UCLA. Mm-hmm. Jack Tordeau is a 2-year starter. Jack Powers is a 2-year starter, and a lot of depth on that program.
So they have the depth and the experience to make a run in the playoffs, assuming they get there.
Oh yeah, well they're going to get there. They're both going to get there.
Right. So you were telling me, what do you need to qualify for CCS playoffs again?
Well, it's a 500 record, either in non-league play or league play. That's not going to be an issue for Seaside or Palma and for a handful of other schools. But if you do go 3-1 in the preseason, you've qualified for the playoffs regardless of what you do in league play.
Right.
Which I don't like, but that's the rule.
Let's hear what Palma coach Paul Aliotti had to say about this year's Chieftain squad.
Well, we have a lot of returners back this year. It's a really exciting group. I think it's probably the most unselfish and multifaceted group we've had probably since Noah was a freshman. We have all the pieces. We have shooters. We got guys that can rebound. We have ball handlers. We have defenders, and we're really an unselfish group on both sides of the ball. I think the kids offensively really share the ball, and defensively they cover for each other and talk well, and they're close, on the floor and off the floor. So, kind of makes for a exciting season for us.
Now, Paul, the league's it's stacked this year with the additions of Monterey and Seaside. I mean, it's top to bottom. It's one of the stronger leagues, I think, in the area, if not the section. I also think Palma and Seaside, you guys might be 2 of the best teams in Division 4.
Well, I think the Division 4 in the last 4 years has been pretty tough. We haven't been able to get to the pinnacle as far as winning the championship. So we've been close, but Santa Cruz has been really good. SoCal is going to have a great team this year. Seaside's obviously very talented, and the addition of the Turner brothers is going to make them even more formidable. So I think that. You hit it on the button. I mean, the league is talented. I think that us and Seaside got a good shot. It's just a long ways away.
True. Yeah. Now, a lot of these kids are back from last year's disappointing loss in the CCS Division 4 semifinals. Has that served at all as incentive this year, or is that forgotten in the rearview mirror?
I think for maybe some guys it is, but we have quite a few new guys. I mean, we have several juniors that were on a very successful JV team last year that weren't on that, involved in that playoff game. We have a kid in JT Taylor who is a junior last year playing JVs who's made unbelievable strides. He wasn't on that team, so there's some new blood here, and which is good because they're hungry. And I think a couple of the other guys, are hungry, and that loss stings as well. But every year is a new year, so those teams that we may face have new players as well. So we're just going to try to get better every day, get closer, and try to get through our preseason schedule before we worry about the playoffs.
I know it's early, but in your mind, where's Palma made some strides so far in the preseason?
I think just in the level of our intensity in practices, and the fact that the guys are really competitive in everything that they do. So I think that if your practices are competitive, you're only going to get better every day. And I think that's been the biggest difference this year. And just the fact that probably we have less football guys this year, so there's a little bit more continuity early on. So hopefully that translates to some success in the preseason.
Now, you've had some talented players come through this since you've been here, namely Indiana Pacers rookie forward Orlando Johnson. When you look at Noah Allen right now, and obviously he's on his way to UCLA on a full ride basketball scholarship, Where is he at this age compared to where OJ was when he was a senior here at Palma?
Two different players. Orlando was more of a, inside guy that was working his way out, and I think just the fact that we had Orlando, gave me some ideas, and Noah's always been a perimeter player, so from that standpoint he's probably more advanced as a guard, and has really worked hard on rebounding and being a better presence, a better finisher inside, which is something that I think that Orlando was always gifted with early on, and had to work more so on his perimeter skills. But both ultra talented players, both very unselfish, and when you got guys like that, you become a very good coach.
Now, we've seen Noah take over games, particularly if teams decide to cover him one-on-one, but he told me earlier today that for this team to be successful, there's got to be 4 other guys on the court contributing and kind of being one.
Yeah, and I mean we've hit on that. I mean he had a pretty big game last year in the loss, and it's not a one-on-one game. It's a 5-on-5 game, so we need 5 guys working as one, and I think that that's where I see the strides this year. I mean, I think that we have a few more weapons as far as ability to score the ball, and in a variety of ways, and I think that we have more shooters, so I think we can really spread the floor, and if they want to double team Noah, then we have enough guys on the perimeter, and he's such a good passer that they're going to get open shots, and I think that they're going to knock him down.
I think a lot of people don't realize that he's a good passer, and he'd rather pass than shoot sometimes.
He's a great passer, and I think he's learning how to balance, getting guys shots this year, and getting his own shots, and when he needs to take over, and when he can allow his teammates to kind of carry the burden for a stretch. So I think that's going to be the biggest difference this year, is he understands the pace of the game better, and he's going to give the ball up earlier in the game and let those guys get some touches, and then he knows that he's going to have the energy later in the game to finish if we need him to make a big play.
Hey Paul, before we get out of here, you mentioned you got some shooters this year. Obviously Jack Tardo led you in 3-point goals last year, and you got some size in the paint with Jack Powers back. But in your mind, what would you like to see most improved upon as the season progresses?
I just want everybody to continue to improve. I think that the juniors are very good, underrated. Jack Burleson's back, starting as a freshman all last year, and much more confident, much more of a threat offensively. So I think that the biggest thing is I want everyone to be a threat on the offensive end, and defensively I want everybody to really take pride on that end, and understand that that's kind of where we're going to be really successful, is if we guard people. We can weather those stretches of poor offense or bad nights shooting the ball.
All right, it's going to be fun. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
So John, a lot of buzz around Noah Allen, UCLA bound, was thinking about going to Harvard, decided to take the scholarship at UCLA instead. How's he rank as far as players you've seen come out of here? In particular Orlando Johnson, and you were around for Jens Gordon as well, weren't you?
Boy, now you're really out there.
Yeah.
That's 3 different players really, and Jens was a 6'9" power forward at North Salinas, who had a great career at Santa Clara and a cup of coffee with the San Antonio Spurs, and now the head coach at Salinas High. Mm-hmm. Of course, Orlando, OJ's like people call him, is now with the Indiana Pacers as a backup forward there. Noah's just a little more smoother. He's about 6'7". He's a guy that can play the point. He's a great shooter. But what a lot of people don't know about Noah is he likes to pass the ball. He's a very unselfish player. He would prefer to pass rather than shoot, and I think that's what's going to help him not only throughout the course of this year and getting his teammates involved, but when he goes on to UCLA. He's not a guy that has to have the ball all the time to be successful.
Does that make him tougher to defend against?
Well, he's going to be their go-to guy. He's going to average 18 to 20 points this game, and he told me earlier that for his team to have success, he can carry a team. We all know that. But his goal is a CCS team title. That's what he wants, and for that to happen, he's got to have 4 other guys on that court contributing as well.
What do we need to see during the regular season to tell you that this is going to be a special team?
Well, I think for Palma, just others contributing. We mentioned Jacques Tardieu. This is a good outside shooter. He needs to get involved like that. Jack Powers has been there now for 2 years. He's a 6'6", 260-pound beast. He's got to have a presence in the paint.
He'll hurt some people.
Yeah, and Jack Burleson, a guy we haven't talked a lot about, is just a sophomore, started last year as a freshman. His dad was a legend at Palma, and he's pretty good now too. And he's going to run the point for the most part for Palma. And I mean, that's 4 pretty good players there for Palma right there, without mentioning their bench.
Yeah. A lot of pressure on Noah Allen, a senior this year.
You know, maybe not as much as there had been had he not taken the scholarship. Remember, you mentioned Harvard earlier. He was set to go to Harvard, and he had to decommit because the financial numbers just weren't going to fit.
Yeah.
And that broke his heart. I mean, that's where he really wanted to go. And then he kind of had to resell himself. You know, he didn't know where he was going to go, and a lot of scholarships were already taken up. You know, he had a visit to Washington State and Northwestern, and then UCLA came out of the blue and gave him a call. And everything, as he likes to say, happens for a reason, and this has turned out pretty good.
Okay. Well, let's hear some more about what Noah had to say.
UCLA just has a great basketball tradition, and it's a lot closer to home than, you know, Northwestern or Washington State. And it was a pretty easy decision once I found out the offer was on the table. So.
Now, Noah, what was it like when you had to inform Harvard back in September that you were going to decommit, that the financial numbers just weren't going to work?
I was devastated. I love the coaches there, all the players, but things just didn't add up, so I had to tell them, and I was kind of lost. You know, I didn't know where I was going to go, but you know, everything happens for a reason. So.
Sure. Now, you mentioned that. What went through your mind, though? Because it's September, you don't have a place to play.
Yeah.
You were highly recruited over the summer, but some of those jobs were gone, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of scholarships were taken, so I had to get on my phone and call the schools that were interested in me prior to me committing to Harvard and see which ones I could still go to.
So you kind of had to resell yourself a little bit?
Yeah, a little
Wow. Now, I know you had trips, you mentioned earlier, to Washington State, Northwestern, but what was it like when UCLA called and said, hey, come on down, we want to fly down for a visit?
I was kind of relieved. They didn't offer me at that point, but I mean, they wouldn't pay for your whole family to come down there, so I mean, I was just excited, and I couldn't wait to get down there and see what they had to say.
So how long did it take for you to realize this is where I want to be?
I got home on Sunday night and I committed Monday night. So
less than 24 hours. Now, there's still a basketball season here to be played at Palma. You can carry this team. I've seen you do that in the past, but you've told me you realize that it's going to take 4 of the players on the court to kind of achieve a goal that you want, which is a CCS title.
Right. Yeah, no, you can't do it by yourself. You need 5 guys on the court, you know, to win a championship. You can win a couple games, but to win it all, you need 5 guys on the court.
Now, this league this year, it's stacked, you know, with the additions of Seaside, Monterey, San Benito, Salinas, Alvarez. I mean, this is a tough league this year. I don't see any cream puffs.
Oh, not at all. Every game's going to be a challenge. We have to bring it, you know, every day, or else we'll get beat. So.
Now, I know it's early this year. I mean, we haven't played a game to this point. But is there any difference in this team that you can tell versus the first or the previous 3? I
think we just have more guys that are serious about basketball. A lot of years we had guys play other sports and stuff like that. So, I mean, we're a lot more focused, and you know, hopefully it pays off.
Yeah. Are you more relaxed this year, knowing where you're going, everything's set, or?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, there's a little more pressure on me and just on the team in general. We have a lot of expectations for ourselves, but I mean, we just have to overcome them.
Is there a goal that's eluded you?
No goal.
Okay. Hey, before we get here, okay, give me your vision now how it ends for you at Palma. Is it a jump shot to win the game? Is it a vicious dunk? Or I know you.
Yeah.
Is it a pass with no time left to an individual for a game-winning basket?
If I got 2 guys on me, I'll pass it for the game winner. That's what I envision.
And if not?
I'm taking the shot.
All right. Thanks, Noah.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, John, the Equity League has changed the look of basketball here on the peninsula and in the county. What's your shuffle mean for basketball here?
Well, it's clearly turned the Gablin division into what I would call a mini super league. I mean, now you've got Seaside, Monterey, and Christopher bunched in with San Benito, Salinas, Alvarez, and Palma. That's 7 pretty good teams. I mean, Christopher would win the Pacific division if they were in that division. They may finish last in the Gablin division. So it's a competitive league, and that's what they wanted with this Equity League. My problem with it, though, is you've got a team that's going to finish maybe 6th or 7th in a Gablin division that's not going to make the playoffs because they probably won't have a 500 record. Versus a team in the Pacific that is going to get in that, you know, maybe shouldn't be in there.
In the Pacific, what's that lineup look like?
Well, it's a little weaker. I mean, and for some respects, that's good for some of these schools trying to rebuild their programs. LaSalle was winless last year in the old T-Cal, which is something that hasn't happened at LaSalle maybe since the 60s. You know, they're in the Pacific Division now, and you already seen they're 3-1. They're off to a good start, so it's going to help them. I think it's going to help North Salinas. Yes, and it's the idea is you want to rebuild these programs, get them back on their feet a little bit, and then see what happens. I mean, the equity is going to change every year. You know, at least one team's going to go up, one's going to go down. The team I do like in the Pacific Division is Monte Vista.
Why is that?
I mean, David Hightower was kind of overshadowed last year by Josh Mooney, who was the league MVP. This kid's going to average 20 points a game. He's 6'4". He's a very talented receiver in the football team. He can post up. He can shoot threes. I think they're the favorite in that division.
Also some changes in the MCAET this year.
Strange changes. Yeah. I mean, they've divided that league into two divisions, calling it a Valley and a Peninsula, and they've thrown York and Pacific Collegiate in. And for the life of me, I don't understand what York's doing in this league. I mean, Coastal athletically was perfect for them. I mean, I think for them it's not their fault, but I think they're in over their heads right now.
Very small private school.
Right. They're not ready for this, in my opinion. And Pacific Collegiate, they're the two-time CAL champions. But I thought that league was perfect for them as well. They're going to jump into the MTN, they're going to take some lumps, some bumps. But Marina did it 3 years ago after winning a CAL title and was in the playoffs 2 straight years. So I think they can be competitive. I just don't know if this was the right time for this.
It's a matter of we'll see.
I mean, that league's wide open too. There's nobody's going to run away with the MCAET. But I think Pacific Collegiate, you know, man, that's a school in Santa Cruz. So a lot of commuting.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. A lot of long road trips.
Yeah.
What boys to watch? Yeah, you're already looking at who are, you know, you start with Noah Allen. Who else are some of the guys who are going to?
Well, we got to look at Ronnie Turner. He was on our all-county team last year when he was at Alvarez. Now he's at Seaside. Kyle Heeb, another kid from Seaside, very talented outside shooter, has gotten a lot stronger this year as a senior. Joseph Delk from Salinas High had a 34-point game to open the season. He's a very talented guard. Mitch Wood from Alvarez. You know, we talked about Alvarez, you know, having lost a lot of kids to transfers. This kid's good, and I mean they're gonna surround some people around him. I think Alvarez is going to be pretty good. And looking at my crystal ball here, Chris Russo from Monterey High. Now, I think Monterey is going to struggle a little bit this year in the Gavilan division. They're one of those schools that got bumped up, had the run of the NBL for many years, but they're a little thin, young. They got 2 freshmen that could potentially start this year. But Chris Russo's a senior who kind of have to hold the pieces of that team together.
So game in and game out, they may wear down as the season goes on.
Well, I don't know if they have enough right now. I mean, I think those freshmen, by the time the season's coming to a close, they're not going to be freshmen anymore. You know, they're pretty talented freshmen. One of them was playing varsity football for a little bit, so they're athletic.
So with Monterey, there's the argument for everybody makes the CCS playoffs. That's a team that at the end of the season might be good enough to make some noise in Division 3 or whatever division they go into. Right,
and they're going to have, in my opinion, they're going to have at least a 500 non-league season to get that playoff spot, because I think they're going to struggle in the Gavilan division.
Girls basketball. John, big picture, how does girls basketball look this year in the county?
Young, inexperienced, some rebuilding, and Christopher Gilroy. They're a very talented team. They won the NBL title last year, and they're part of this Equity League change. They've moved up into the Gavilan division of the NBL, and I think they're the favorite to win that league right now. A name people might remember, Heather Stewart, who was at Stevenson, kind of rebuilt that program for a 3 or 4 year run they had there before she left. She's at Christopher now and just doing a phenomenal job. I mean, there's some good players on that team.
Who else in that Gavilan division do you like?
Well, I like Notre Dame, mainly because of, that, and I like John Given. I mean, the guy came back last year after a 5-year absence, or semi-retirement, if you want to call it, and takes them from a 6-win team to a league championship. I mean, he coaches defense. He understands what he has and what he doesn't have. And, you know, Notre Dame's a team where you're going to have trouble scoring 30 points on them, and I think if you could, you know, if you can hold a team to 30 points or less, you're going to win a lot of games.
You got a shot at it.
Yeah.
What brought him back?
Probably his daughter, who's a sophomore right now, and one of the better athletes in the area, Marissa Given. I mean, I know a lot of people look at her as a softball player, but she's led the team in scoring in 2 of their first 3 games this year. So, I mean, she's very good, and they've got a couple other girls on that team that aren't bad. Again, they play defense. That's what Notre Dame does. They're not going to score 70 points, but they're going to win a lot of 32-30 games or 38-36 type games. That's just how he coaches.
So is this a year that you expect some team to come up and grab your attention that just hasn't happened yet?
Maybe North Salinas.
Okay.
And people say, well, wait a minute, they've been to the playoffs 11 straight years or something like that. But you know, they struggled a little bit last year. Finished 3rd or 4th in the old T-Cal. They had 5 freshmen on that team last year.
Wow.
Those 5 freshmen are now sophomores, much more experienced under Darren Jackson, who's been there now for 12 years. They're a team with a lot of athleticism, I should say. It could be a team that could rise as the season progresses, particularly when we get in the league back in January, when we get into January.
And Darren Jackson's been there before. He's gotten them to several playoff appearances.
11 out of 12 years, yeah. So he's
and made some runs pretty deep in the playoffs, as I remember.
Yeah, and then when we look at the MCAET, you know, I know Santa Catalina won it last year, but they're on their 3rd coach in 3 years right now. I like King City's tandem of Sarah Shepard and Jessica Davis. These are 2 girls that were there last year. They averaged double digits in scoring. Sarah's inside, provides a presence in the paint. Jessica can shoot from the outside. She can penetrate. And again, our Herald Athlete of the Year last year. Just a good all-around athlete.
Yeah. Switching sports now, what about wrestling? What's happening in wrestling this season?
You know, we've got 5 schools in our area ranked in the CCS right now. Gilroy's ranked number 1, actually, and Palma's ranked number 2. But it changes every week, obviously. But LaSalle, Monterey, Pacific Grove, and King City, they're all ranked in the CCS right now. So we've got some talent in this area.
Wow. What do you think's behind the turnaround? Are more kids coming out for wrestling, or?
It's just a resurgence right now. I mean, we've got. I'm thinking off the top of my head, Javon Villalobos of LaSalle went to the state meet last year at 171 pounds. I mean, he's back. There's a couple of heavyweights. I'm going to butcher these names, Dave, but the kid from Seaside, Jonathan Tulosega, I think. Okay. And then I'm just going to say Mr. Manzer from Palma. Okay. And the all-county linemen we have. Both of them went to the state championships last year in the heavyweight division. They're back too. So I mean, there's some talent that's kind of come up over the last 2 or 3 years. You know, now they're all seniors.
Yeah. Great to get excited about wrestling.
Yeah, it's indoors too. That's
right. Turning now to college basketball, CSUMB opened up their conference season, and it wasn't a great opening weekend for the Otters, was it, Tom? Let's start with the men who lost both games. What happened there?
Yeah, I think there's actually some positives that the men can take out of those games. They lost both of these games to start off their conference play, but the team does have 3 wins on the season, which matches their entire total for last year when they went 3-23. But this is a team that they're still in some early stages. I think they could have some success. They showed some signs. The first game, they had a really spirited comeback against Sonoma State, but it just fell a little short. And then in their second game against San Francisco State, they were actually leading at halftime. It was the first time since February 18th, 2011 that they had a halftime lead.
Oh, wow. That is a long time. Okay.
So, I mean, there's some signs of improvement with this team. The first game, Brandon Ward came off the bench to score 17. That was a really strong effort from him. Freshman guard Alex Fertigue, he scored 16 points and was his first college start. So they're building something there, but it's still in the early stages. If they can keep moving forward, I think this team has a shot at least getting around 500 and at least
middle of the pack.
Yeah, at least getting up to the middle of the pack. And you never know when you get into the conference play. So,
were they ready for conference play this season? Do you think that was what you expected against Sonoma State?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't think they'll tell you if you ask them that they're happy with this. Obviously, they're going to want to win, but I think they were competitive in both games, and that's a good sign for that team.
Turning to the women now, higher expectations for the women than the men.
Yeah, very high.
And they go in and they split this weekend. What happened?
They came out really strong in the first game. They ended up winning by a 30-plus point deficit, so I mean that was a big showing. But then after they scored so many points against Sonoma State, the offense just shut down against San Francisco.
They just go stone cold, or?
Yeah, turnovers was a big problem. They turned over the ball 15 times just in the first half, and then
they only scored 38 points.
Yeah, and their shooting was a big problem. They only shot 26% from the field, so you're not going to win a whole lot of games doing that. I think I wasn't there, but I think something that they're going to have to work on is taking better shots. You want to try and get into the paint, try and get those higher percentage shots, and that's going to help you out a lot.
How much do you think it's playing on the road and back-to-back? It was a Friday-Saturday thing.
Yeah, it was a Friday-Saturday thing. That may have played into it. This is a team that had just taken a week off for Thanksgiving, and so I mean it might be a little bit of just they're a little stale out there, so it might be they're trying to get back into the swing of things, and they will have another break coming up later on this month before January. They finally really kick things into gear and start going full swing.
I mean, that's going to be an important aspect is playing that second game. They do a lot of back-to-back scheduling as opposed to, you know, Division I basketball where we see more of a break between games. So it is going to be key for them to have the stamina to shoot well the second game.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's something that Renee Jimenez had in mind when she built this team, and with the depth that she has, I think she anticipated that, but it just hasn't worked out. I don't think she's quite getting the contributions that she would like from some of the players. Brittany Jefferson did have a good game on Saturday. She led the team with 8 points, but you're not going to win many games shooting like the way they did.
What about defensively? How did they look defensively?
They have been strong defensively still. I mean, they held both teams under 50 points, which is always a positive. Mm-hmm. But as strong as the defense was on Saturday, you're not going to get it done when you shoot as poorly as they did.
Right. But defense at least kept it a little bit competitive there at San Francisco.
But yeah, definitely. If it wasn't for their defense, it probably would have been a blowout the way they were shooting. Okay. So.
All right, what's next for the men?
So the men head out on a East Bay road trip. Starting Thursday, they'll be at Holy Names in Oakland, and then this Saturday they'll meet up with the women in Hayward, where both teams will face CSU East Bay.
Okay, that's the former Hayward State.
Yeah, once Hayward State.
And how about the women? And
so the women, they'll be playing on Wednesday. They're going to be facing Academy of Art before they join the men up in Hayward. Both of these games are games that the women believe they should win. Mm-hmm. Academy of Art is a team that should help out that offense. They're allowing 63 points per game.
Wow, okay.
So ideally that'll be something that the Otter offense can really get things going in that game heading into Hayward the following game.
I believe Academy of Art, that's in San Francisco. I think they just started playing sports 3 or 4 years ago. So.
Yeah, fairly new. They are a Division II team, though. They play in the Pacific West, so they're a decent opponent. It should be a pretty good game, but it should be a good test for the Otter offense as well. It's a really high-flying offense.
Do you know anything about East Bay, CSU East Bay, how good they are this year?
They're mediocre. Both teams are, I believe, right around 500, both the men and the women. So for the Otter men's team, that should be a game that they can at least compete in and hopefully be able to eke out a win. Mm-hmm. As for the women, I think that's a game that they feel that they should win. That's a team that's more around the middle of the pack in the conference, whereas the Otters were picked #1 to start the season.
Right.
So,
Tommy, let's take a minute to touch in with JC basketball. How are things looking at MPC?
They're off to a pretty good start. They're 2-3 to start things. Adam Myron had a really good game in their last win. He scored 13 points. He has 4 or 5 from the 3-point arc. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a couple tournaments, kind of like the high school kids. They have a tournament coming up this week and then another one next week. They're going to be up in the South Bay. Mm-hmm. First, they're going to be at a San Jose City College tournament. Then they'll be at West Valley. And I think that's a chance for them to stack up some wins before next month when they head into their conference play.
And when does conference play start?
Conference play starts January 11th.
That's the Coast Conference, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's it for Prep Nation. We'll see you again next week.